Welcome to the Revenue Agency. In today's special edition of Coach's Corner, we dive deep into the stories and strategies of extraordinary coaches who are making a genuine impact in their communities. Each week, I bring you authentic voices from diverse niches, coaches who have faced their own challenges like burnout and brokenness, and turned those experiences into powerful catalysts for change. I'm Brittney Hall. Join me as we explore their journeys, unpack valuable insights, and discover how they've transformed their struggles into lessons that empower others. Whether a coach yourself or simply looking for inspiration, you won't want to miss these heartfelt conversations that illuminate the path to resilience and growth. Let's get started. All right, hello everybody. My name is Brittney Hall. Welcome to the Revenue Agency podcast. This is another edition of Coach's Corner, and I'm really excited about today because this is one of my favorite people in the industry. Has been for forever. I do say that he is the best dresser in the personal development industry. The best. He is a transformational speaker, a coach, and a mindset expert. Courtland Warren, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Look, as soon as you said that, I was like, dang, did I even wear the right jacket? I don't know, but at least we can see my pocket square a little bit, though. We can see the pocket square a little bit. No, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on the show and to share with your audience. I really do genuinely appreciate it. I do.
Yeah, no, this is an honor. Like, I was just so pumped and I've been so excited for this. But I want to just kind of start off on maybe a little bit more of a casual question. I want to know, what are you loving in your life right now? Like,
Well, I'm about to be a grandpa.
What?
I know. It's hard for me to believe too. But the shock that was just on your face, I'm like, so my oldest son is like, so how do you feel? And I'm like, old. Like it's so wild though how fast the time has passed, right? But
Yeah.
so yeah, my oldest son, his name is Tarian, and we just did the baby shower a couple of weeks ago,
Oh.
and he's gonna have a little girl, and
Oh, because do you
so
have two boys?
yeah, I got two boys, and I got
Okay.
two boys and two girls. I got two
Okay.
boys, two
Okay. So
girls. Yeah,
you've
yeah.
been down the girl road before.
Yeah, yeah,
Little
yeah.
girls.
But this grandpa is like that's a different one, you know. So but I'm
Yeah.
loving it. You asked me what am I loving right now? I'm
Yeah.
loving that. And then when I watched him at the baby shower, and I watched how he just kind of handled the room, and he had,
Yeah.
the different, families there, and just watching him, just speak and, just respectfully appreciate, the people and the fact that his daughter was going to be coming into the world with love. It was a good moment. So I'm loving that right now. That's fresh on my mind. That's fresh on.
Oh, that's so cool. Congratulations.
I appreciate
You're
that.
not
Thank
old
you.
enough to be a grandpa.
Yeah, I mean, come on now,
I'm like, I don't even know how old you are, but you don't seem.
with this light blue jacket, does this light blue jacket give grandpa feel though? I
Oh
don't
my
think
God.
so. I don't think it
I
gives
don't
off
think
the
so.
grandpa, but
No,
no,
no.
I'm excited though. I'm excited, and it represents, legacy, so
Yeah.
it feels real good. It feels real
That
good.
is really cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just went home for a couple days to Oregon, and all these people who I think of that should be like 13,
Hmm.
years old, I'm like, they're having kids, and I'm like, oh wait, but I guess I am getting older, but I thought I was still like 20. But it's kind of cool. This, like, just like getting older and the continuation of life and these other generations and
Hmm.
kind of coming
Hmm.
into your own. Do you feel like as life has progressed and you get through some of the hurdles, you're like, I am kind of like arriving.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like my uncle would say, I have one of my uncles. He lives down in Hempstead, Texas, just outside of Houston.
Uh-huh.
And so I always, tease him when he comes in for family reunion and things like that. I'm like, Unc, man, you're getting old. And he just says, you just keep living. You just keep living, right? So that's kind of what I feel. I don't know if it's necessarily an arrival as much as you start to, accumulate, the days of that pass, and the
Yeah.
years that pass. My youngest son, he graduates college next week, and I still remember that first morning, seeing him for the first time. So it's
Yeah.
like, those days, they do accumulate, and it does really speak to doing something in those days
Mhm.
that matter, because
Yeah.
regardless of what we do in a day, we exchange a day of our life for it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? It's like, no matter what you did today, You know,
Mm-hmm.
you are essentially saying that I will trade a day of my life to do this
Mm.
thing. And so for
Oh,
me, it just makes sense to do something that I love and enjoy doing because I am
yeah.
exchanging a day of my life for it. So you get to the end of your life, and when you want like one more day, I've lost friends and loved ones in the past, and it's like, I would love to have one more day with them. And you hear people
Yeah.
say, man, if I just one more day,
Mm.
fortunately both my parents are still alive, but I've heard people like, man, just one more day with my mom, just one more day with my
Yeah.
dad, just one more day. And I think about that often, like and in some relationships, those relationships
Mm-hmm.
have closed because those people no longer are here. But I just, I think, man, to get to the end of my life, your life, our lives,
Yeah.
we look back over it and say, man, of the days that I had, how many did I exchange to do something
Mm-hmm.
that I love to do? And
Yeah.
how many days did I exchange for something that I wasn't even passionate about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really powerful thought,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
kind of actually perfectly segues us into, what you've been doing for over 20 years,
Yeah.
right? Coaching, speaking, just pouring into people, a lot of people.
Wait a minute. I had to let that settle in for a minute because it really has. It's been like 25 years or so.
Wow.
And it's been a labor of love for sure. You would think that it's pretty easy to get people to believe that they can do it, to break through their
Mm.
limiting beliefs and just, hey, go do that. You would think that's an easy job. And so many people talk about, oh, I would love to do that. And I'm like, until you see how
Yeah.
resistant we are, as human beings to our own greatness. I make
Yeah.
the case that it's actually easier to succeed than it is to fail. And
Mm.
people, they tend to like want to argue that I said, no, no, no. It's actually easier to succeed than it is to fail because in order for you to truly live your life unfulfilled and uninspired and, what we'll loosely term failing,
Yeah.
you actually have to be proving a lie. Now think about
Mm.
that. That's oxymoronic, right? To prove
Yeah,
a
that's
lie.
interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
but in order for me to show up in my life as though I'm not capable, I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy, I can't have the life that I want, I actually have to believe a lie about myself. And that lie is that I'm not deserving, that I'm not worthy. And so we do a lot of work, okay, to build a case for that to be true.
Yeah.
It's easier to just fall into, well, what is the truth about you? And that I believe that the truth is that we came into the world with everything that we need to
Yeah.
be and to do, to have a fulfilling and meaningful life. So yeah, it's been over 20 years now, close to 25 years of
Wow.
facilitation. That's literally thousands of people in classroom, hotel ballrooms, settings. This is not, now I had to reinvent, post COVID, but a
Yeah.
lot of my work was in the classroom, large group, awareness training and facilitating, not just keynote speaking, but actually,
Mhm.
working with people one to one,
Yeah.
on their underlying beliefs. And so, when I say it's a labor of love, it's really, I love seeing people wake up to the truth,
Yeah.
who they
Well,
are.
and I think, I'm in this industry in a different capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and I work with a lot of, guys who are doing what you do, men
Mm-hmm.
and women. And like you said, a lot of people look at it and I think they put these people up on pedestals and go, "Oh, I wish I could do that. I would love to do that." And I think too, if something looks easy, it's because somebody has become so good at it. They've become so proficient at it that
Mm-hmm.
they make it look easy. But like nothing is just easy
Mm-hmm.
naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. And it
yeah,
may
I
be
want
true. It may be true that they would love to do what they see that person on the stage doing.
yes.
That's the piece. I don't doubt that they would love to do that because
Mhm.
you get to witness, if I'm seeing that, I see a person on the stage, I get to witness the applause. I see the
Yeah.
lights, they got the fogger that comes
Oh
on when they
yeah.
come out
The
on the
music.
stage. They got their walk-on song.
Oh
They got,
yeah.
their names and lights and I'm in the audience, I'm watching that. I would love to do that part. Right?
Mhm.
It's like saying, well, I would love to win the Masters golf tournament. Now,
Yeah.
am I willing to do the work required to
That's the part.
get that outcome? that's a different conversation. So I don't doubt that
Yeah.
they would love to do what they're seeing as the final outcome.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the what you know what delineates is, are you willing to do what's required in order to have that?
Yeah. I think too, are you willing for people to tell you no multiple
Yeah.
times?
Yeah.
Or, not treat you nice or
Mhm.
talk bad about you on the internet. It's like there's just like so many things that you have to be resilient for, like,
Mhm.
and work through it. And doing what you do you have to have such a passion around it that you're willing to go through that. So
Mhm.
I want to just go back to
Okay.
Courtland almost
Okay.
25 years ago
Uh-huh.
when you first started into this industry.
Okay.
How did you get into it? How did that
Mm.
happen?
That was a great question. The short answer is I got laid off from my job. I mean, I worked.
Where were
You
you
know me
working?
enough to know I'm just gonna give it to you straight, right?
I want to
So
hear it. Well, do you know what I love about this, Courtland? And I have to say, and I consider you like we are friends. We've known
yeah,
each other for a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
I think so many people in this industry are just full of shit. So it's like you never hear about the struggle and this stuff or about
Yeah.
like that building process. I just think everybody's like wants to act like they were an overnight success. And it's like,
Mm. Yeah.
no, like there's no truth to that
Yeah.
ever. So,
No, no. I was, I mean, for me, I was working in the oil and gas industry.
okay.
Enron came along. Some of your listeners will remember Enron.
Mm-hmm.
And then Enron imploded, and the company that Enron was like number one. We were like number three,
Mm,
and so anything resembling Enron's business practices went away. Now,
mm,
I had followed a script that said, get good grades so that you can get to college, so that you can get a good job, and then you'll stay there until it's time to retire. And that was success. I grew up in Idabel, Oklahoma. Idabel is about 7,000 people today.
okay.
It's a very black and white town,
Mm,
and meaning, the railroad tracks separate, this little town, and the black people lived on the west side and the white people lived on the east side of town. And so
okay.
growing up, it looked to me like, everything that was good was on the other side of the tracks.
Mm,
And, there were the haves and the have-nots, and we
yeah.
were in the have-not line. What I
Okay.
wanted to do was to change lines. I wanted to figure out, how do you change lines? And my mom, I would ask a question similar to that. And, I would get things like, oh, all you need is love.
Oh,
Love is all you need. Now, Brittany, I heard that, but it didn't quite, you know what I mean? And some of you listening will have heard that all you need is love. Can we
yeah.
just agree, right, that nothing replaces money in the
No,
places where
you can't
money
pay
is
your bills
required,
with love.
right?
The power company is not interested in that.
I'm like, send your mortgage company a love letter, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I had heard, you get good grades, you do all that. I didn't grow up with my dad, but
Mm,
we would talk periodically, very sparingly. And he actually installed glass and mirror. That was his job. And so one of our conversations, he said that in the biggest homes, the largest homes that he would go into, those homes had like libraries in them, not a
mm,
bookshelf, a library. And
yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, growing up where I grew, I'm like, what? How do you have a house that's big enough to have a library?
Yeah.
I'm like, I hadn't even, at that point, I hadn't even seen a house that had an office, much less a library.
Oh, yeah.
So curiously, I asked him, I said, so well, what kind of books are in there? What are they reading? And he
Mhm.
was like, well, I mean, I'll take a look. And so about I don't even really that was one conversation, and then the next time we visited it, he came to my track meet. It was the state track meet, and we won, by the way. But after the
I
after
was
the
gonna
meet was
say,
over,
were you a runner? What
yeah,
event
yeah,
did
yeah,
you
yeah,
do?
we won. We're pretty much a big deal when it came to track and field in the state of
Okay.
Oklahoma. We can't
Okay.
really deal with Texas, but anyway. So at the end of the track meet, I'm going to the bus with my friends. He's walking with me, and I'm, hey, my dad's with me. I feel all good, and
Yeah.
he says, "Hey, I got something for you." So we go over to his work truck, and I can still see him today lifting this like green milk crate full
Mm,
of books, and he hands it to me. I then remember the conversation, and I'm like,
okay.
oh, these are the books. And so so I go, now he leaves, I go to the bus. My buddies are like, why you got all those books? And I'm like, man, my daddy gave me these. It was the
Yeah.
first gift I ever remember receiving from him, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'm like, my daddy gave me these books. And while they celebrated it in the back of the bus, I was just kind of filing through, and that crate, that milk crate, had titles like, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was the first time
Yeah.
I saw the title, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Les Brown, It's Not Over Until I Win. So I started reading there even in high school. But when
Yeah.
I got home that evening, with this crate of books, my mom she didn't notice she didn't acknowledge the medals that were on my neck. She's like, "Where did those books come from?" And I said, "Oh, Daddy gave them to me. He was at the track meet." And before I could even finish, Brittney, she's like, "Get him out of here. Get him out of here. I
Oh,
don't want any.
no.
I don't want anything in here having to do with him. Get him out of here." And I'm like, and my mom was not a debate, have a conversation. It was
Yeah.
like her way, and the highway wasn't even an option. It was just her way, period.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so she's like, "Get him out of here." Now I've been reading them, just for a couple of hour drive, and she said, "Get rid of them." And I remember like walking out, and I was like, I can't do it. I know the good book says children obey your parents, but I'm like, I know that there's truth in this. And
Yeah.
so I took them to my grandmother's.
Okay.
And behind her house, she had this blue tarp. I covered them with the tarp. One by one, I would go in and I would pull a book. I would read it. Those became my book reports in
Wow.
high school. And so I would say, as far as even like back then, I wanted to follow and pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went the path of, well, this is what you actually do. And so I
Yeah.
went the corporate route. Well,
Yeah.
then I'm like laid off, and I'm like, this
Mm-hmm.
was not a part of the plan. Like this, no one said that this was the part that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of Jim Carrey giving like a commencement speech, and he was saying that
Mm.
his dad was the most influential person, funniest person he'd ever known. Didn't believe that he could take care of his family as a comedian, and so he became an accountant. And he was laid off,
Mm-hmm.
and went into spiraled into depression. And Jim Carrey says he learned a valuable lesson from that you could actually fail doing what you don't love, just like
Mm-hmm.
you can fail going after what you love. So you may as well go for what you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, being laid off, I reconnected to, I said, man, this is what I really want to do. And, my mom, when I think back to that, I mean, those books didn't stay in her house more than a minute. you know, but she said
Oh,
something
no.
very important. She said something very important. She said, that's all he ever did, talking about my dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he did. He would read and he wouldn't apply it.
Oh.
And that was the part that really like stuck with me. And I was like, so it wasn't the books. It was the lack of implementation, right? It
Yeah.
was it was not practicing, what was said. And so I became very intentional in, I'm going to create a life that uh, inspires me, one that I can, be proud of. And my way of doing that is going to be to apply these, the lessons that these authors are teaching. So I didn't have like mentors, I didn't have a model. My
Mm-hmm.
mentors were, for the most part, these dead authors,
Yeah.
who were like, this is how you do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so uh, for the last 25 years, it's like, I see people now in I'm not, I'm not a name on the big stages. I'm not, I don't have the marketing chops, I guess, as some who are out there. But as it relates to assisting people in transformation, um, I definitely I like my body of work. I like my resume as it relates to
Yeah.
actual people in a room, uncovering limiting beliefs and having breakthroughs,
Mm-hmm.
almost instantaneously. But
Yeah.
it is the background in that is a lot of study. It's a lot of reading, a lot of study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you were telling that story, it's interesting because, maybe your dad read and didn't implement, but
Hmm.
he still like passed something along to you, even
Oh, it
though
was the
like,
greatest gift. Yeah.
triggered your mom. But even your mom getting upset might have done something for you where you're like, I really need to make sure I apply what I'm
Hmm.
reading
They were the
because,
they were the perfect blend. You know,
yeah.
I mean, they were the perfect blend for me, and so I consider them both being on assignment. As my
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
My mom is very, very tactical, very, rule follower, by the book. You do dot 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 dot,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad always spoke of, and his life today, shows that it can eventually, come about. But he was always the vision, the
Mm.
dreamer, this is what's possible. And so when I am, working, with people today,
Yeah.
um, I'm I'm empathetic to that, you know, I know that I want it, but why can't I get myself to do the thing that I know to do? And it's
Yeah.
not because they're lazy, not because they aren't serious. I
Mm-hmm.
feel it is a bit offensive. I see some, the some brave, guru, who was just willing to put a camera on their face, and it's like, if you don't go after you just got to do it. You got to just get up and go do it. If you don't do it, you're
Yeah.
not serious. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that's just you clearly don't understand how the
Yeah.
brain works, how we actually move into action,
Mm-hmm.
and in truth, I don't believe that there are lazy people. I
Mm.
really don't. I really don't. And so I'm empathetic to that. But yeah, they were a perfect they
Yeah.
were a perfect blend. They were perfect blend. But man, yeah, I think back to that, and a big part of that too is just refusal. I think a
Mm.
big part of success is refusal, just
Yeah.
refusing to, whether that's give up, refusal to, follow a different path that is not one that aligns with you, or in my case, yeah, I understand you don't want these books in your home, but
Yeah.
I'm not throwing them away
I'm gonna go
because
hide them at grandma's.
yeah, I will hide them. I will, because nothing that I got in school, nothing I got from church, nothing I got from any, elders or anything
Yeah.
spoke to me the way those, words on those pages.
Yeah.
I'd never even thought about how our thoughts become things, and
Mhm.
I never even thought about any of that. So that's really, that's how I got started. Is getting laid off took me back to what was, I would say, kind of like an origin truth that I
Yeah.
had denied. And so, and today I'm very grateful that I had the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you get laid off.
Uh-huh.
I mean, are you married? Do you have kids at this
Mhm.
point? Like you're like
Yeah,
in your life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like,
Fully.
when I got laid off, let's see, I wasn't married, but I do remember standing in the what employment line, unemployment line.
Oh, yeah.
They gave me a little brief little severance. I didn't know this whole idea of laid off didn't make sense to me. Yeah, remember I grew up where I grew up, that just wasn't like normal conversation, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
being laid off, I remember going in that morning, and we had this meeting and go in this all employee area. People were crying and sniffling and shit, and I'm like, you know, and my guy, he's like,
What's going on?
yeah, man, it's not a good day. And he's
Ugh.
like, I don't know what happened. He's like, well, it's a reduction in force. I'm like, what do you mean
Yeah.
reduction in force? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like,
Say
yeah,
that in like normal terms.
yeah, well, we're getting laid off. I'm like, laid off? Like we
Oh,
got fired? He said, no, 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 it's not the same. It's not the same. I was like, man, where I'm from, if you don't come to work tomorrow, you got fired, right? It's
yeah.
like he's
Yeah, you're
like,
out of a job.
you do not have a job, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, that was but that was a big turning point. But I was standing in that employment line, thinking this is not how I imagined this to be. I went through
Yeah.
my little 3 month, severance that they gave me. That was nice of them. But
Mm-hmm.
then it was like, okay, I needed to file my unemployment this week so that I get the check next week because I was already
Mm-hmm.
at the place of needing these two checks for rent and so forth.
Yeah.
And it was like, never again.
Yeah.
Never again do I want my income determined by someone else's decisions.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
for it was just that was a seminal moment for me. I also didn't like the idea that I, as a grown man, could have children and want to go to the baseball game, the football game, the whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got to go ask
Oh,
another grown man if whether or not
yeah.
I could go to my kids' games.
Oh, I know. It's
I'm like,
crazy.
how do we do I'm like,
You know what?
no, no, no.
I mean,
And
my
I don't,
opinion is
and I
cool.
don't, I know not everybody's for entrepreneurship. I don't knock it. It was just there were just certain aspects of it that just didn't compute.
Yeah, it's
Like
not for you.
I got to go ask permission. I would have to go ask permission to see my children or
Mm-hmm.
play a sport or
Yeah.
an event, because I had witnessed that a guy that was, he was in my pod at work,
Yeah.
and he was so frustrated because he was running out of days, all like PTO,
Mm-hmm.
and so he had to make a choice to not go to a game because he was like budgeting his days off for the rest of the year. And he's like, I can't
Oh.
do it. And I was like, oh man. So I didn't have a family yet, but that was already part of it. But that whole idea that um I could come in and just like I said, the decisions of someone else could mean
Well, yeah, it's like you're
making money.
like what you can do is in someone else's hands. It's not
Right.
actually having like full autonomy over your life and a
Mm-hmm.
choice. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean, I'm
that's
with
tough.
you,
Yeah, it was.
obviously.
That, now that said, when I ventured off, let's be clear, it's been some scary days.
Oh,
There have been some days where I'm like, man, it would be a lot easier
mm-hmm.
to just go get a predictable,
To have a salary that you know
income.
the
Yeah.
check's coming on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting though
Mm-hmm.
that when you're really built for entrepreneurship, it's almost like you know that you're going to make it happen.
Yeah. You
Like
just.
that's what I tell. I'm like, I would always bet on myself over
Mm-hmm.
betting on somebody else for my success. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
into that.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
bet on me. And that's
Yeah.
and that's and that's mindset too, right, Brittany? Like
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
mindset because not everybody has that belief in themselves where they would bet. I think everybody can get to that place,
Yeah.
but but not everybody even has that, and so that's why I say it's not for the faint of heart. I hear people say, well, I want to own my own business so I can have my days off when I want to and work when I want to. And I was like, man, please stay at the desk.
Oh, yeah.
Stay
Well,
at your
because I
desk.
think,
It's not how
my
it goes.
parents have been in business over 40 years successfully.
Mm,
So I grew up in that,
okay.
and I think that people who have never worked for themselves or provided jobs for other people or, had that on their shoulders, they think, oh, well, you just make a lot of money and you don't really have to work. It's like my
Mm,
dad's 78 and he
mm,
still goes
yeah.
down there and, and
Yeah.
he's kind of somewhat retiring, but I don't think he could ever just like fully walk away. But it's like,
Mm,
no, you got to show up. But it's hopefully when you're working for yourself, it's something that you're so passionate about that it doesn't feel like going to
yeah.
a job. Then I would say
Yeah.
maybe you should look at a different industry. Maybe you're in the wrong thing. But
Mm,
yeah, don't you
I
feel
agree.
like with what you do, like you'd probably take time off and do things you enjoy, but don't you feel like you probably touch it every day?
Every day. Yeah.
Every day.
It's every day. And there are aspects of it that I'm over. Like I'm
Mm.
over it when it comes to, being in airports. I'm
Oh,
over it, when it comes to hotels and all but man,
I usually,
when it's
yeah,
time to be in the room with the people,
yeah,
like I'm like, this is what it's about. I'm also
yeah.
over it though when it comes to because there's so much, scammy type, personalities out there,
Yeah.
I'm over defending that this is the way it is, you know. So I have found myself being less tolerable of, well, this is a scam or this is this, and
Mm.
I was fresh in my mind. I'm in a conversation with a guy not that long ago, and he's like, well, everything you're saying here, I could learn on YouTube. I said, you're absolutely right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I said, and you could also learn on YouTube how to fly a commercial airplane. It's about a 16-minute video. I
Mm.
said, now I want you to imagine you get on the plane, you and your family, and you get buckled in, and they're going through, the safety checks and so forth. They close the door, and then over the intercom, they announce that, hey, you guys are so lucky, today is the first flight of Captain so and so and so and so.
Yeah.
And but don't worry, he learned exactly how to do it off of YouTube.
Yeah.
And so the guy was like, "No, what?" I said, and because I actually wouldn't look, it's a 16-minute video, and this
Yeah.
guy's like, turn, and then you do this, and you do this, and you do that, and you do this, 16
Yeah.
minutes. There you go. You can fly a plane. The work that I do, I just simply say, I'm not a gimmick.
Yeah.
I know that you will never act consistently in any way that is inconsistent with your self image.
Mm.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
You can know what to do and not do it. There are reasons for that. I know that the brain uh, seeks familiarity, it seeks comfort, it looks to
Mhm.
conserve energy. So, therefore, anything that the brain interprets as effort or work, it will
Mhm.
actually help you justify not doing those things. It
Mm.
looks for comfort and familiarity, even though you could be comfortable in an environment that is not best for you. Like I know
Yeah.
that I've experienced that with people and with myself.
Mhm.
That that comfort is not the goal. I know that the brain though is going to support you in doing the thing that is most comfortable. That the
Mhm.
brain is not committed to you getting your dreams. It is not committed to you being an overachiever. It is not committed to you being financially free. That is
Mhm.
not its job. Its
Yeah.
job is to have you survive and remain safe and remain comfortable. So,
Yeah.
in order for you to do the thing that you know to do, then you must override that. And there are
Yeah.
some very specific teachings on how you override those neural pathways that have been pretty much ingrained. How do they get ingrained? Well, it's through life experiences and
Mhm.
then our interpretation of a life event or experience. So, my dad leaves home, okay, interpretation, not consciously, but an interpretation might be, well, I'm not good enough, or, I'm
Mm.
not deserving, well, I'm not lovable, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when people are speaking to other individuals in a speaking or coaching capacity, and they're like, well, that was just an event or experience. You got to just get over that. You got to just get over that.
With
That
no
is
tools
a
on
that's
how
a
to.
coach. Yeah, that's a coach to run from.
Yeah.
Right? That's a coach that is a coach to run from. The idea of just get over it, because these
Mhm.
particularly traumatic events and experiences shape our beliefs, and then
Yeah.
our beliefs drive our actions. Our actions drive the result, but the results only validate what we believe. So therefore, if you find yourself in this loop, this vicious cycle where it's like Groundhog Day, and every day, or no matter what I try, no matter what I do, I seem to keep ending up in the same place. It
Yeah.
is not because you're broken. It's actually because your brain is working. That's a
Mm.
pattern that you have become familiar with. It's like,
Yeah.
it's an emotion and a feeling that individuals can become addicted to. That's why
Mm.
some people in a relationship, because they've only known chaos,
Yeah.
then they will only feel okay in an environment or relationship that is chaotic. So that when things
Mhm.
are peaceful, they subject, not consciously but unconsciously, they have to come up with something, right, to ruffle some feathers, to
Yeah.
to start an argument. Why? Because their system is equipped for chaos and discomfort.
Yeah.
So just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's what's best for you. And in order to get out of that, it does require a very deliberate and intentional method of the word is myelination, where you
Mm,
rewire your neural pathways. So if you look, it's a, well, just visualize the outcome that you want. That doesn't work. Why?
mm,
Because most people, when I say visualize, they close their eyes and they just see a blank screen. They're not even able to
yeah.
see anything.
Yeah.
Why? Because the brain does not have a map for that outcome because they've never done it before. So
Yeah.
therefore, if the brain hasn't done it before, say, well, that's an unknown. And so rather than risk going into an environment that is unknown, my job is to keep you safe. So now we're going to fall back to what we know. So the
Mm,
idea then is to place yourself in environments where you can essentially like override those beliefs, create new neural pathways, create an image of the outcome that you want. That's where true like transformation takes place. And
yeah.
a lot of people tend to stay away from that topic because it requires actually caring about your audience. It actually requires caring about that one individual. It actually requires that you care about them, not that you get to brag about, how many, high ticket offers you made and how many high ticket sales you made, but you
Yeah.
really don't give a shit about the people, right? And
Yeah.
so then in the industry now, you have people who are like kind of done with the personal development industry
Mm,
because people weren't honest with them up front.
yeah.
It is not a weekend thing.
Yeah.
It is
Or
not
there's
that.
a lot of, well, buy this, but then if you really want the result, well, then you got to buy this, and now you
Mm-hmm.
got to buy this. And it's like, well, but when do I actually like reach my goal?
Mm,
Or the other thing I've seen is not in the mindset space so much, but more of like the strategy where people are like, "Oh,
mhm.
I'll help you earn 7 figures a year." But it's like, but you have people in your company that do those things for you. You weren't actually the one who did it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so
mhm,
it's like
mhm,
it's these
mhm.
funny things that I'm like, you had to hire somebody to do that for you. You don't actually know how to do it. I've seen a
Right.
lot of that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
they're selling people these ideas, and it's kind of
And I don't mind the selling of the ideas. I just think if you just be honest with people about
yeah.
what's going to be required
Yeah.
and then let them choose from that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I do believe that the imagination is very powerful and
Mm,
we can do more than we give ourselves credit for, So,
absolutely.
but as a I just for me, I don't see the real I don't see what's so sexy about getting people, to pay for an outcome that you don't even believe that they can get to.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
difference, I think, for me is that I actually believe that I can assist them in getting to an
Mhm.
outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're going to explore actually how the brain works to answer. So we're
Mhm.
not going to just be hypey about it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
So
like you're actually gonna do the work with the people.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually like that part. I
Yeah.
actually like that part, and hearing the stories of people who actually went out and implemented,
Yes.
and but where there is no implementation, no action, there is no attraction. So we can just
Yeah.
hang that idea up for sure.
Well, I think that it just also really speaks to like you caring so much about people speaks to like your staying power. Like almost
Mm,
25 years in an industry
mhm,
that, you see a lot of people who are like a flash in the pan, even a couple years, and then you're like, I never hear, or they had one good book, and that,
mhm,
hit some bestseller list.
mhm,
And it's like,
mhm.
well, what happened to them?
Mm,
Where'd they
yeah,
go? So
it's
I
it's
think it's,
exhausting, and two, you have to be deliberately in the work yourself.
yeah.
You have to be otherwise it just catches up. And listen, I am what is the Japanese term, wabi sabi, like perfectly perfectly imperfect.
Hmm.
I mean, you vet me out. There's mistakes that I've made, just acts of sabotage and stupid things and all of
Hmm.
that. But what I see though is with AI, it's like personal development started to become Ivy League, and
Mm,
only certain people could pay the tuition to
mm.
attend the class, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But one of the things that I'm working on now, I call it AI plus you. You can actually, with a free version of Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
prompt it in such a way that it will provide you with the answers, the frameworks, a structure, and an implementation plan
Mm-hmm.
that uh, that supports or that accelerates your growth and transformation.
Mm.
So if you are a coach, a speaker who actually doesn't care, it's okay. Your days are numbered.
Yeah.
Numbered.
Yeah.
Like it's because now a person, oh, I could just go, I'll just ask Chat GPT this thing. So if you don't, and so the reason, one of the things I'm so excited about in life right now, besides, being a grandpa,
Yeah.
is I believe we're moving into an age where only your best will be permitted.
Mm.
Like only the best of services, only the highest value,
Yeah.
only those who are truly, about excellence in whatever it is that they do. Okay.
Yeah.
I am not one who believes that AI is going to take over the world and we're going to have robots running around everywhere and they're going to kill off humanity. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that AI is going to replace you. I do believe that you will be replaced by a person who is using AI.
I
Now
think so
that
too.
that I do believe. And so
Yeah.
to the extent that you're just so for your listeners who are truly who have a deep desire to be better, who have a
Mm-hmm.
deep burning desire to live a life that they're proud of, like to get to the end of their life and say, man, when I look over my life, it wasn't perfect, but more days than not, I
Mm-hmm.
exchanged a day for something that was fulfilling and purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Because the crap, the BS is getting weeded out,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And Sam Altman, the found one of the of OpenAI, he said, you know, um, he called it deflate. I had heard inflation, but he was like
Oh,
deflation is
deflation. Yeah.
basically AI would bring the cost of things down so much that the one characteristic that will set people apart, he called it willfulness.
Mm.
And I, I'm pretty well read, and I had not heard of the word willfulness used in that context, but it's
Mm.
essentially resilience, willfulness. Do you have it in you? Do you have the moxie to
Yeah.
bring something, an idea, to life and make it available to the marketplace? Right?
Mm.
Because that will be the thing. And so resilience is not one of these things that you either have it or you don't. It's
Yeah.
not. It's a skill, okay, that
Yeah.
can be developed. And I was listening to the great Kobe Bryant, rest in
Mm.
peace. And Kobe was like, this interview was saying to Kobe, so when it comes to basketball, it's one of those things like you either have it or you don't. And Kobe was like, I disagree with that. And it
Yeah.
got the interviewer off guard. He's like, how can you disagree with that?
Yeah.
You're 6 foot, like he said, oh no, no, those are physical traits, but
Mm-hmm.
not everybody who is 6'9" is in the NBA. He's
Yeah.
like, and then the interviewer, he was pretty solid. He said, well, I think either you have it or you don't. And Kobe's like, well, I remember my eighth grade year. I played summer basketball in my eighth grade year, and I didn't score 1 point the entire summer.
Mm.
The entire summer. Not a free throw, not a layup. He said, and I got playing time. And the guy asking the questions, he was like, how did you go the whole league and not ever score a point? I didn't score a point.
Mm.
So by your stance or position, then there's no way I could be here because you
Yeah.
either got it or you don't. Well, I believe that you either got it or you can learn it. And if you can
Mm,
learn it, you can master it.
yeah.
And so that's what I look to do. And so for, for those who are listening, to this podcast, I say, look in your life at where you're bored.
Mm,
Look at where you look at something that you're just bored doing. Like it's just so second nature that you're just bored by it,
yeah.
because it could reveal, because you're likely bored doing something that someone else would really appreciate you for. And
Mm,
so if you follow that curiosity, go to the place where you're currently bored, it could represent mastery, And so it's
oh,
like me with speaking, it's like
okay.
I'm not bored in it, but I've done it so much that
It's
it's
just so
like
easy.
I know it, right? Like
Yeah.
marketing, it, right? So
Yeah.
look for the areas where you're bored, and there could be an answer to you creating a business, a platform, a an offer that others will genuinely appreciate you for, and compensate you beautifully for bringing it to them. That's what I think.
That's it. I've never heard it put like that before. Like I've always heard people say, something that comes easy to you that
Hmm.
people say you're good at, but I've never
Hmm.
heard where it's like you're almost just like bored doing it because it's so,
Bored doing it. Yeah,
yeah.
there's so consider the number of times you've had to do it for you to get to the place
Yeah.
where you're bored with it. So somewhere in there could be a an answer to a business, an
Hmm.
offer, and so forth.
Yeah.
That's my thought anyway.
Yeah. Okay. I know we're probably like, we're getting
I
close to
told you I have
sunset
long.
here.
I get a little long winded. You're gonna do
No,
part
this
one,
is
part two.
great. I love it. No, this is so good because you phrase things, in a way that I'm like you have a way of teaching concepts that is different than
I
a lot of
appreciate
people
that.
that I've heard. And it's really good. I'm like, oh man, I could just sit here. Um, but we talked about, I think before we hopped on, how this industry, like it can be tough. It can kick you down. We
Mhm.
alluded to that a little bit in the beginning, but did you ever have a point in this business where you were like, I might, like you were close to quitting?
Mm. Oh yeah, several.
Or where you're like, who do I think I am? I think that imposter syndrome's a real thing. It's like, who am I
Brittany,
to tell people
I'm
this?
standing on that stage talking about you can have this wonderful life. To think is too. I have an actual photo of it somewhere on like on my Facebook page. But anyway, and I thought I was looking good in that big baggy like suit. Like, oh man, you could. And I was up there just talking that talk, Brittany. Oh, you could have to think is to create, and
Yeah.
thoughts become things. And I got my hand in my pocket, and when I look back at that photo, I know for a fact there was no money in it.
Oh,
There was, so the idea of, feeling like a fraud for sure. I
yeah.
remember, going to classes and being in workshops, and then we would leave for lunch. And, I developed this reputation of being very aloof,
Mm,
because, they thought, oh man, and I would say, oh, I just need to go gather my thoughts to get ready for the next segment later today. But the
yeah.
reality was I had no money and everybody's going to lunch, and I didn't
You're
want
like,
the
this might
embarrassment. Yeah,
decline.
I didn't want that embarrassment. I mean,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's where I was at,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, who in the hell am I to be standing here,
Mm,
saying these things? It felt like
yeah.
such a hypocrite. But then I recognize that it's not hypocritical to share, these truths. That's not hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's hypocritical to know the truths and not be sharing them. See, some people think, oh, okay, I have to be at a certain level before I can start to forward my message. And in essence, what I'm
Yeah.
saying, that's saying is, okay, well, some other people who could be served by this message, um, are delayed until I feel like I'm ready. That's actually egotistical. That's not altruistic. It's very,
Mm,
self-righteous
yeah.
to think that, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
know this information, and because I haven't completely applied it, I'm not going to even share it because I don't want you to look at me a certain way because I'm not applying it. So therefore, your goals, dreams, and aspirations get delayed until I feel like I'm
Yeah.
ready to share it. That's not altruism.
Yeah.
That is actually narcissism. Okay. It's very
Oh,
self
yeah.
righteous. I'm going to delay your growth until I feel like I'm ready. So, were there days when I wanted to
Yeah.
quit? absolutely, there were days when I wanted to quit. And then I started getting to where, okay, and in fact, I thought about it so much that I said, okay, I got to do this in 5 year increments. Okay. So I
Mm.
make a decision and then we'll reevaluate in 5 years. That's how I started doing it
Yeah.
because I can't, yeah,
Wow, 5
I can't have,
years, that's a long time.
yeah, yeah. But I was
I'm
like, I
like
just
a
had, I mean,
short-term thinker.
yeah, yeah. I'm like 5 years, and then I'll reevaluate. So
Wow.
I'm almost 50. So I'm about at I got to reevaluate next year. You know how if I'm gonna go five more, but I think that that's part of it. I think the
Yeah.
questions, I think the doubt, I think the uncertainty, the who am I to have this bold vision and dream, that's
Yeah.
par for the course. And the more I get to know people in the industry, it's not like those who you mentioned earlier who are on those stages. It's not like they don't have those
Mhm.
doubts also. So we
Yeah.
never get to a place where they're completely removed. But yeah, that happened, and still happens. It still happens. But we can have the limiting beliefs and just be like, okay, thank you for sharing, and I'm going anyway.
Yeah.
So the idea
Yeah.
is not to get all of the limiting beliefs removed. We want to get to a place where we can take action even in the face of them.
Yeah. So good. So good. I mean, there's just like, I mean, there is like so much gold in this. I'm like, people are going to have to listen to this like so many times. So, what, I mean, I know you've got some stuff you're working on.
Hmm.
I know people can find you on Instagram, Facebook, all the places, right? Connect with
Hmm.
you. And you have some programs that you have going right now. What is something that you're teaching or speaking on that is just like, you're like fired up about right now?
I'm most fired up about AI plus you. I think that AI plus you can be the answer for people to accelerate their growth. And
Mm,
it's you know um, it's fascinating to me that we can be in a place where all of the information is now available to everybody. So what happens?
mm-hmm.
See, when information used to be where only certain people got the information, then
Yeah.
that limited who had access to greatness. Well, what happens when the information is available to everyone? What happens then? Now we get to really see, what you're made of. But I'm fired up about the reality that we can remyelinate. That I'm fired up about neuroplasticity. It goes
Mm,
all the way back. William James, started the psychology department at Harvard, 1800s. He said, the greatest discovery of our generation is that we can alter our lives by altering our attitudes of mind. What he's saying was,
mm,
it's the with everything that's happening, with everything that's going on, economy, politics, race relations, at the end of the day, the individual still has and possesses the power to alter the trajectory of their life by
mm-hmm.
altering their attitude of mind. If you look in you
Mm,
look in the history books, and in every great family, not every
mm-hmm.
family, but in every great family, there was one person who decided that the way it's been is not the way it will continue to be. In every great family,
Yeah.
someone decides that it's going to be different. In my family,
Yeah.
I am that person. And what
Mm,
I would say to those of you who are listening is, in your family, are you that person, or
mm.
will you leave that to someone else?
Oh,
Ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
man. I don't even want to ask anything else. I think we should just leave it right there. It's so dang good.
Hmm.
I'm
Thank
like,
you
I'm
so much
thinking, I'm
for
like,
this
am I?
opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much. It's just everything you have is so valuable. I would encourage anybody that's listening to this, we're going to drop all the links for Courtland in the show notes. So go follow him, like his posts,
Appreciate
share
that.
his posts. I mean, I do think that you're one of the most impactful coaches and speakers that I've heard, and I've heard a lot of them.
Mhm. Well, I
I've heard a lot of
appreciate that. I
people.
really do. I
So,
really do.
yeah. And I really do feel like, where you're at, like I know that we're going to see you blow up even beyond what you've already done, which has been really remarkable. But I'm just glad to call you a friend.
Well, we're friends for
So
sure.
thank you.
Thank you. I really, and to
Yes.
your listeners, thank
Thank
you
you so
for.
much.
I just want to say to your listeners, just really quickly, I see it like we're in the attention economy, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's vying for your attention. So the fact that you listened in and shared some of that
Yes.
precious resource of attention, thank you so much. And my hope is that your listening has made you was valuable, and that you're thankful to yourself that you tuned in. And Brittney, I do sincerely thank you for the opportunity, and let's do it again. Let's work some more.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right.